He would never say anything more than that. He would never elaborate. He was always Sinatra. And 2 months later, fade out, fade in, I get a call from a record studio in Los Angeles.
You won't believe the story behind one of the greatest songs of all time. Did you know that My Way, the anthem we all associate with Frank Sinatra, was actually written by a teenager, Paul Anka? But here's the twist. The song everyone cheered for wasn't just about confidence and triumph. It carried the weight of Sinatra's deepest regrets, loneliness, and private struggles. Paul Anka knew the truth for decades, and now he's finally revealing what the world never saw. You won't want to miss this inside. Look at the man behind the legend. The meeting that changed everything. Paul Anka was only a teenager when destiny first placed him in the same room as Frank Sinatra. It was the late 1950s, and Las Vegas was alive with flashing lights, glitzy casinos, and the constant hum of ambition. Sinatra, already crowned the chairman of the board, was a man whose presence could silence a crowd before a single note was sung. To Paul, barely 18 and just beginning to navigate the whirlwind of fame, meeting Sinatra felt like stepping onto another planet, a world equal parts dazzling and dangerous. Paul's rise had been meteoric. Hits like Diana and Put Your Head on My Shoulder had already made him a teen sensation. But Sinatra's world was a different kind of stage. Here, the stakes were higher, the players more intimidating, and the lines between friendship and power blurred. Sinatra wasn't just a singer. He was a force of nature. To be noticed by him was an honor, but also a trial. From the very first meeting, Sinatra was magnetic, yet unpredictable. One moment, he could embrace Paul warmly, laughing and sharing stories as if Paul were a long-lost brother. The next, he could be cold and distant, his temper flaring without warning. Paul quickly realized that being close to Sinatra meant navigating a maze of charm, brilliance, and volatility. It wasn't just about talent, it was about instinct, respect, and a deep understanding of human nature. Despite the challenges, a bond formed. Sinatra saw something in Paul that few others did. A mixture of humility, raw talent, and a hunger for greatness that mirrored his own youth. Paul was invited into the inner circles of the Rat Pack, rubbing shoulders with Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Joey Bishop. He experienced firsthand the glamour, the laughter, and the excess of a world most only dreamed of. But he also glimpsed the darker side, the loneliness, the private struggles, and the pressures that accompanied legendary fame. Paul watched Sinatra live at the very edge of life and art, performing in sold-out venues while carrying private burdens that the public would never see. It was here, in those formative years, that Paul learned lessons not just about music, but about life, loyalty, the cost of ambition, and the vulnerability that even the greatest icons carry. Little did he know, this meeting would set the stage for one of the most iconic collaborations in music history. And years later, the song that would define Sinatra's legacy and reveal the complexity behind the legend would come from the hands of this young teen who dared to dream. The song that became a mask. It was 1969, and Paul Anka was quietly working behind the scenes, never imagining that a single song would forever intertwine his life with Frank Sinatra's. One night, Paul came across a French tune called Comme d'habitude. Its melody carried a sadness that seemed almost tangible, a longing that felt personal. Paul sensed that the song wasn't just beautiful. It was a vessel, one that could tell a story only someone like Sinatra could inhabit. He poured his heart into new English lyrics, crafting My Way. Every word was deliberate. Every line reflected the choices, triumphs, and regrets that define a life. When he presented it to Sinatra, Paul couldn't have predicted how monumental it would become. The song didn't just fit Sinatra, it transformed him. It became his anthem, a declaration of confidence, independence, and authority. The world applauded, believing they knew the man behind the music. But the truth was far more complex. Behind the booming voice and bold lyrics was a man who carried regrets and vulnerabilities that rarely surfaced in public. Sinatra's pride often masked his loneliness, and "My Way" forced him to confront emotions he wasn't always ready to face. Paul knew this intimately. He had witnessed Sinatra's private moments, times when the chairman of the board confided fears, admitted doubts, and revealed a fragility few could comprehend. For Paul, writing the song was both a gift and a responsibility. He had given Sinatra a voice that would echo across generations, yet he also knew the weight the lyrics carried. They immortalized Sinatra's persona while exposing the cracks in his armor. Every note, every line was a reflection not just of the legend, but of the man's private struggles, hidden from fans, photographers, and the press. Behind the glitz of Las Vegas stages and sold-out arenas, Sinatra battled with the cost of fame, broken relationships, moments of isolation, and the pressure to remain untouchable in a world that demanded perfection. Paul watched silently, learning that fame is a double-edged sword. It can lift someone to unimaginable heights while quietly eroding the soul. My Way became more than a song. It became a mirror, revealing Sinatra's humanity to the one person he trusted most, Paul Anka. And while the world celebrated its strength and bravado, Paul knew it carried the weight of a man's secrets, regrets, and private truths, a complexity that would remain with him for the rest of his life. In giving Sinatra this song, Paul had done more than craft a masterpiece. He had held a mirror to the legend, showing both the light and the shadows, a balance few would ever witness. The truth at 84. Now at 84, Paul Anka is finally ready to tell the world what he has carried in silence for decades. He speaks not to tarnish Frank Sinatra's image, but to reveal the man behind the legend, a man both extraordinary and profoundly human. For years, Paul watched Sinatra perform for packed arenas, dazzling audiences with charisma, confidence, and precision. But behind that public persona was a man wrestling with loneliness, doubt, and the weight of his own fame. Sinatra's life was a delicate balance of triumph and isolation. He was adored by millions, yet he often felt unseen. Paul remembers evenings when they sat together, away from the cameras and applause, and Sinatra would let his guard down. He spoke of missed moments, strained relationships, and the fear of being forgotten. These were moments of vulnerability that contrasted sharply with the man the public revered. Paul held those moments close, recognizing the privilege and the burden of witnessing them. The creation of My Way had become a symbol of both pride and reflection. To fans, it represented independence, courage, and self-assurance. To Sinatra, it was a reminder of choices made, roads taken, and opportunities lost. Paul understood this duality, and it shaped the way he viewed fame, friendship, and legacy. The song immortalized Sinatra, yet it also quietly revealed the cracks in his armor, cracks that few, if any, ever saw. Sharing these truths is not about diminishing Sinatra's achievements. It is about humanizing a figure who has become almost mythical. Paul's revelations remind us that behind the lights, applause, and accolades, legends carry the same fears, insecurities, and regrets that any human being does. Sinatra's story is not just about music or fame. It is about the cost of living in the spotlight and the courage it takes to endure it. Paul's decision to speak now is also a reflection of his own journey. He has spent decades balancing admiration with honesty, loyalty with transparency. By sharing his memories, he honors Sinatra while providing a fuller, richer picture of the man behind the legend. It is a story of mentorship, friendship, and the invisible burdens that fame imposes. Through it all, Paul emphasizes that Sinatra's legacy is not diminished by these revelations. It is enhanced. Knowing the man behind the voice, the vulnerabilities behind the bravado, makes the legend more real, more relatable, and ultimately more inspiring. The applause, the hits, the charisma, all of it matters. But so does the man who, in quiet moments, allowed himself to be seen, even if only by Paul. As Paul reflects on those decades, he sees a man who loved, struggled, erred, and triumphed. A man whose story deserves to be remembered in its entirety. Sinatra's life, through Paul's eyes, is a testament to human complexity, resilience, and the enduring power of friendship. And for fans, it is a rare gift, the chance to glimpse the truth behind the myth, and to understand that even legends must face life's highs and lows, just like the rest of us. Paul Anka's revelations show us that even legends are human, with fears, regrets, and moments of vulnerability. If you were amazed by this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another deep dive into the lives of music's greatest icons.